All right, we will get started on our work session agenda on the 15th, June 15th already, 2026. And it's 5 o'clock, and the first person on our agenda is Under Sheriff Joel Ives, and we're going to have an introduction. Thank you, Sheriff.
Yep.
Welcome aboard.
Yep. All Legos. If it makes you feel any better, I have the same problem and I don't have all the gear on. So. Fair enough. Well, good afternoon, Commission. Thanks for having us. I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce our new undersheriff. So Undersheriff Rocket retired a couple of weeks ago after 29 years with the county, and had the pleasure of promoting Joel Ives on the 1st of this month. And so Joel has been with our office for 11 years. He started as a patrol deputy, and then he was actually our first school resource deputy at the high school, and took that program from really a concept and built it out to what it is today, and do full class. We have actually teach a class at the high school that has a waiting list today because of what Joel built, and built relationships, and then became a patrol sergeant, so a supervisor, and then really took on the administrative roles with our office, going from not only supervising deputies in the field, but also day-to-day grant management, different projects he's brought off the ground. And so he comes in with a really good knowledge of the sheriff's office. It's not just the enforcement piece, which is what is necessary for the undersheriff position, because we're talking about budgeting, we're talking about multiple programs that Joel will be overseeing that are not just enforcement programs. So Joel's well suited, and we're really happy to have him, and our leadership team is very happy to have Joel as a member. So turn it over to Joel.
Well, thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be in this position, and I'm here to serve.
All right.
Can I ask a question? You started to explain it, but I really don't know what all that position entails, other than it's someone who I see with you all the time and seems to know all the things that you know. But what is the actual, statutory? Is there a statutory basis for you, or is it simply,
There is a statutory basis. It does not define necessarily the role, but it's the number 2 person in the sheriff's office. But really, what the undersheriff does is it's like operations, the control of operations and oversight of operations, and it's the totality of the sheriff's office. So there's a lot of the direct reports, maybe other leaders in the office, but it's overseeing kind of the bigger picture day to day, not just enforcement. So it could be helping in dispatch, helping with parole and probation. It's being a conduit, pushing out like our leadership, essentially goals and policies, et cetera. And so it's a really broad reaching role that requires somebody that understands the totality of how the sheriff's office works, and the key components, has stakeholder relationships in place, and you're working not only within the organization, but with outside entities. So it's a big role. And then so in 2010, during the recession, we used to have a captain position, which was basically akin to what our commander positions are for parole and probation and 911. And we lost that position. And so we hadn't been able to get that back. So essentially the undersheriff acts as that patrol commander position as well. So it has to pull double duty.
And does he also, like, if there are emergencies and you are unavailable, does he have statutory authority to fill in for you?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And that it's not statutory, but it's virtue of position, essentially. So I delegate a lot of the authority. So, if I'm unavailable, and there's times where I might not answer the phone and he would be the second call. And so he can make that same call because we would hopefully be on the same page and make the same decision anyway.
So when you're vacationing in Cancun and we have
Yeah.
a blizzard, he's going to be
More like that phone might not wake me up at 3 a.m. on the first try.
That's very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm curious, can you tell us a little bit about what your curriculum is at the high school that you're teaching?
So I'm not teaching it now, but it was a program that I initially developed and has been carried forward. The class is called Public Safety and First Responders. And so we're providing an intro to students about the criminal justice system and all of the careers that are related to public safety. It's kind of a career development. Like initially it was the brainchild of Pete Hughes, who is the current SRO, and his concept, the thing that he was really kind of thinking through, how do we do this, is how do we find homegrown talent? How do we do a better job of developing people who are interested in law enforcement from our own community? And so this was the idea that he kind of came up with, and then I built the curriculum in the class. And so yeah, just trying to introduce them to the careers within public safety. And even for those who don't have an interest in going into public safety, they get a good basic grasp of the criminal justice system, which I think everybody needs.
Oh, that's great. And you might do it again in the future.
He's not going to have time.
I'm not going to, although even as of
undershare.
As of 3 weeks ago, I think it was, I was in Pete's class teaching. He calls me in every once in a while to come help with specific topic classes. So I'm still available for that on occasion.
Well, it sounds like a great program.
It is.
Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you. You were already aboard. All right.
Good.
Any more questions?
Thank you.
All right.
Congratulations.
Got a wiggle over here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff to have to carry around. So the next thing on our agenda is the Moderate Income Revolving Loan Program, MERL. And we have Will Norris to present along with Brian Beebe from Assessments.
Thank you, Chair. Your members of the commission. I need 1 minute to pull up a presentation, and I think we also have some people from the state MERL program online. Megan Ellertson, the MERL program manager, and then Austin Saldana and Henry Taylor Goldie, who are MERL analysts, in case there's some technical questions that I can't answer.
You panelists, that's not acceptable.
Well, thanks for your patience. So yes, Will Norris from the city of Hood River here to talk about the city's local moderate income revolving loan program that we are trying to enact locally within the city of Hood River, but very much need the county's partnership and participation to get off the ground. This is a state program that is administered at the local level. And so first, before I really get into the what of the MERL, I want to always center in the why, and so have just a little bit on the current state of our housing situation in the city, then get into exactly how the MERL works, and an example from the Big River Community Land Trust, which was the entity that first requested that the city look at this program, and then talk next steps. So this is the ratio of median home value to household income in the city of Hood River. A ratio of about 3 to 1 is a rough rule of thumb for new home buyers that say if your household income is $100,000, maybe you should be looking at a home at about $300,000. So in 2012, the ratio in the city was about 5 to 1, and then that grew to 10 to 1 during the height of the pandemic, and still is at about 8 to 1 as of 2024, when The median home value being just north of 700,000, the household income at 86,000. Now, lower interest rates somewhat muted that rapid rise in home prices for a time, but that's changed in the last couple of years. So this graph shows median household income in Hood River, and then the median household income you would need to purchase the median home in Hood River. And so it takes into account mortgage interest rates. And so they actually stayed fairly close to one another as mortgage interest rates continue to go closer and closer to zero. But just recently, with increased in interest rates, the affordability gap has really exploded. I think everyone considered housing unattainable back in the 2010s, and we're really charting new levels of unaffordability right now. And while housing becomes increasingly unaffordable, we're also seeing a slump in building activity. So this is new housing permits, not necessarily ones that get built, but these are all the building permits for new housing. We were averaging about 40 to 60 in the 2010s. That's as the Seaver crop area was building out. But that has now gone down to about 5 to 15 per year, with the notable exception of Mariposa Village in 2025, and that's 130 units right there. So we are far below what we were permitting before. But even back in the 2010s, we were below what the Department of Land and Conservation District says is our proportional benchmark if we're going to meet this, do our part to meet these statewide housing production numbers. We should be at about 110 new units per year.
Well, can I ask why number is so low?
Yeah, lots of reasons. One is cost of capital, so interest rates going up, that makes it harder to get loans. But I think the biggest sort of Hood River specific reason is land availability. So Seaver crop was flat, it was subdivided, it had roads, and it filled in. I looked through this data. That's Seaver crop. That was Seaver crop coming in. And now we're left with the West Side District, which is kind of devoid of infrastructure and much more challenging to topography. And that's basically our last reserve of developable property, of significant developable acreage in our urban growth boundary.
When was the last time that we were at the 100 plus, which is what the LCD thinks we should be at?
Yeah, I haven't looked earlier than 2015.
Yeah, so that would be around between 2004 and 2010. I think we frequently hit that. It would be interesting to look at what's different now from what the conditions were then, because interest rates were actually higher than they are now.
Yeah, I do think land availability is a big piece of the puzzle, but perhaps anecdotal, just based on what I looked here and over this data set.
Because that was before Seaver crop even started.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And so especially when we get into public support for housing, I try to hit on why it matters from a larger public policy perspective to everyone who lives in Hood River, even if you already own and can afford your own house. So the lack of affordability in Hood River is contributing to 4 out of 5 people who work in the city of Hood River commute in from elsewhere. And so that leads to road congestion. I think you can see that at Second and Oak in the mornings and in the evenings as people are coming into or out of Hood River for work. These people who work here, they volunteer in other communities, they coach in other communities, or maybe they're not doing any of that because they're so tired from commuting. And then also it creates labor shortages. And Mid-Columbia Economic Development District, their strategic plan specifically identifies the lack of affordable housing as a key weakness and threat to our local economy. One half of our police and fire staff at the city of Hood River not only live outside the city, but live outside of Hood River County. And so they may be cut off from the city during emergencies. Think of how often I-84 closes down in the winter. And then also they just begin their shifts, which can be from 10 hours to 24-hour shifts after long commutes.
Okay, who's the guy in the trench coat and the fedora?
Detective.
Oh, he's the detective,
Yeah.
okay.
And then for just writ large, 53% of renters in the city of Hood River are housing cost burdened. That means they spend over 30% of their gross income, so that's before taxes, on housing costs. So, if young families cannot afford to put down roots here, that leads to declining school enrollment. Being housing cost burden increases stress and means you have less funds available for education, goods, services, and participating in the local economy.
Did you have that same number, the housing cost burden number nationally or statewide? I seem to remember you.
I don't have it at my
Somewhere.
fingertips, but
Okay.
it'd be easy to find.
I recall that we are higher, but I can't remember by how much.
Mhm. So with that context, the state of Oregon created the Moderate Income Revolving Loan Fund in 2024 through Senate Bill 1537 to create an option for local governments to promote housing affordable to not just low income, but also moderate income households. There's a lot of programs out there that focus on the 80% of area median income or 60% of area median income. This was one of the first of maybe the first that I'm aware of program to directly support builders of middle income housing. So it received an initial allocation of $75 million, which is allocated on a first come, first served basis. And so far, only Tillamook County has stood up a program so far, and I don't believe they've made any grants. And so I think we are possibly on track to be the first city in the state to stand up a MURL program. So the MURL program and works somewhat like a single development tax increment financing district. And Assessor BB and I have talked about this quite a bit and learned quite a bit from each other as we work through the details of this program. And there's a few differences, but I think overall the analogy works fairly well. So under this scenario, you would have land that has minimal assessed value, but still grows at 3% per year under measures 5 and 50. A qualified development, which creates new taxable value. That taxable value would be held off of the general tax rolls. And instead of making payments into the normal to all the overlapping districts, that the payment that rough payment that they would have paid goes to paying off a MURL incentive. So eligible projects can receive a grant equal to the amount of tax that they will generate over the next 10 years. Up to 15 years, but the assumption is 10 years, and that's what we're looking at the city of Hood River. The state funds that with a 0% interest loan. The state is paid back by these what are called in lieu payments. And then the in lieu payments are then recycled in a revolving loan fund to other MURL programs around the state. After the
Yes, before you go too far on this, I was trying to follow this in the Senate bill, and the section where the calculation of the increment was really obscure. And can you verify for me that it is in fact an increment? The specific question I want to be sure of is that existing tax districts on the day that this starts don't see a drop in their taxes. They see a stop in the increment of the values that they're getting from this property. So they would continue to get whatever they were getting from the property, but not more.
3%.
That's my understanding, is that all the increment from the subject property is just intended to be set aside. All that taxable value is just set aside and as if it never existed to all the other overlapping districts. But
Does that include the 3% annually?
Yeah,
So it just stays at a steady number over those years.
There was no development.
Like there was no development and also no 3%.
for the raw land
Mhm.
underneath. I might have to defer if there's any Merle staff on the line to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hi, everyone. My name's Megan Ellerts, and I'm with OHCS. The 3%, I may have to clarify the question one more time. I'm sorry.
I can state it in a simpler way. If on January 1st of next year, someone starts one of these and it's the piece of property is currently being taxed on the TAV of $1 million. And what will the taxes based on that $1 million continue to accrue to the taxing districts? And is it the increment of it talks about the what they call they have a funny name for the in lieu payment, like award or something, but it sounds like that goes up that is 103% of what it was the previous year, but the base stays where it was. Am I understanding that?
Yeah, the 3% is kind of the escalator that gets included to when determining the amount so that it can allocate for kind of the change in property taxes that would have happened over the course of those years. So that 3% is included to kind of help escalate as you go over time in the calculation of what would be asked to be repaid.
And
So if I'm paying tax on $1 million this year,
for raw land.
all land, that tax on $1 million, I don't know why I chose $1 million, but that tax continues to go to the taxing districts, but then
Improvements.
the following year, $30,000 of additional value is created, and the tax on that goes to repaying this.
Yeah, I think certainly the amount associated with the improvements is certainly diverted to be in lieu. Megan, maybe I can
I
phrase
didn't
it.
see any calculation of anything regarding improvements.
Um,
Because it sounds like it was section 30. It seemed to me like the calculation was strictly based on we're going to give you another 3% every year that you have to pay. You're paying this amount of tax this year, next year you're paying 3% more, and each year you pay 3% more, and those 3% add up, and that's what pays back the loan. Is that?
I believe that's for,
As I understand it, Commissioner Ballard, it's the land and the improvements. First off, if for administration purposes, we'd likely separate them. The land, stays taxable, and as I understand it, any increase in assessed value would continue to go to the taxing districts. It would go to that, in that area.
Wow, okay.
The one caveat that I would say is there is an option in the program to do a land write down where they can get an appraisal of the land, and that could potentially affect the value that we have on the roll currently, and maybe make it less. So that would be the one caveat to that that I see in the program. So
Okay, because I tried to follow through the text and I didn't get any of that out of that.
yeah,
So I appreciate I know
Yeah.
you know this a lot better than I do.
the state has a program manual that's nice and thick related to this that provides a little more detail.
So you're not doing it from
Not just straight from the statute. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a little more into the interpretation of that statute. So, yeah.
Oh, so do I get so you're telling me that I didn't have to do it this way? There was a way to cheat.
There is a cheat, yes.
The manual. Gotcha.
right.
Which one would hope, right?
Yeah, and I think you're hitting on that. This is a very new program that no one has done before, and there's a lot of questions that come from translating legislation into practice. But I think you hit on this issue of raw land and it continuing to provide is 3% growth. That is something that's different than urban renewal. Urban renewal would 3%, even the 3% growth of the land would be diverted for tax increment financing purposes. So that is kind of one different flavor.
Really, the critical thing that I'm asking is, as a district, do each of the districts continue to get at least what they were getting the previous year, or might they see a drop? In other words, does it act as an increment in some form? It may be different than an urban renewal increment. It may not calculate the frozen base in the same way, but is it truly an increment, or is it possible the districts will see their the tax due from this property decline when this property goes on the roads?
Yeah, I
You can
understand,
say you're not
I
sure.
understand why Will describes it as an increment, but we would, as I understand it, that is not how we'll actually administer the program. We'll likely administer the program similar to how we administer like the delinquent sewer fees that we collect for like the city of Hood River and other entities. And so we put that on as a special assessment fee. So it wouldn't be a tax increment.
I guess again, the library district, are they gonna see a drop? Is there a
They-
potential that they could see a drop?
As I understand it, they shouldn't.
I should have just asked that question.
And what's different about, I read that the fire district is different. Are
Yes,
they exempt from
they're
this whole thing?
yeah, they're exempted in every way. They don't even get, they still get taxes from even the new development that's even in
Right.
this in lieu process. I didn't touch on that because in the city of Hood River, there is no fire district. So it's kind of yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, doesn't exist.
So, and when I did read that, I was wondering if the city itself, since the city provides the fire services, but the city's not statutorily a fire district, so it doesn't affect it. Thank you.
Correct. Yeah, thank you. And Assessor Beatty is absolutely right. And that this is not tax increment per se. It just is very similar. It just has similar cash flows. And so it's
You thought it was easier to describe something as being similar to tax increment financing? That's pretty fun.
But at the end of when the grant is repaid, then everything is released to the general rolls and new taxable value that didn't previously exist should be supporting all the overlapping districts.
Can you clarify the 10 versus 15?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it limited to 10, or will we be looking at 15, or?
We are only looking at 10. The statute allows up to 15, but assumes 10, and we're sticking with 10.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But wouldn't that depend on what the valuation of the property became and what that amount would be as to what the payoff schedule would?
There's a complication there. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to
So, I mean, saying-
be accurate in your estimate ahead of time. And I think that's still, if you didn't accurately estimate it and it doesn't perfectly line up with 10 years, I think that is an open question where the city may be on the hook to pay for that. Yeah, it's one of the things that details that is not clear until it's put into practice, I think.
So the 103% rule doesn't guarantee that you pay it off in the prescribed amount of time?
Well, the problem is, so I have this starting in year one, and then, it takes 3 years to construct. You have to decide what your grant is and make your estimate of the taxable value in year one. But then how it actually is assessed, I think the assessor, assesses real buildings. He doesn't assess building permits. So
it's gonna go on the rolls at some amount, and the taxes that are collected are going to be based on what it goes on the roll. That that's the number that's going to be used to repay the loan.
it's my understanding.
That works, okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
So again, for clarity, do you have to define the length of time up front then?
So we will make our estimates based on a 10-year assumption. Yeah, and if we underestimate or overestimate, I think that means just the overflow will flow to the general tax rolls, and if 10 years is not enough to pay it back, then I think the city may be on the hook for the difference.
that could be a big deal
Yeah.
for the city.
Mhm.
Thanks for answering my second question, which is if it were paid off early, what would happen? So,
Yeah, and I don't know,
Those are
Megan, if you
insane.
want to correct anything I've said.
Uh, no, I was only going to jump in and say too, we're working a little bit on addressing some of the potential, and the real risk of that potential getting to the end of the term and having some repayment still left over, might be more prevalent if like a fire district changed, which may not be applicable for Hood River, but I think OHCS is looking more specifically around that exact concern and how we can be flexible and help make sure that the city is not fully, there's some wiggle room to make sure that if needed, additional time is possible. So we'll be providing some more financial risk and liability guidance very soon too. So it is something that we want to make sure we're addressing ahead of time for those exact concerns for the city as well.
But there are like all the, uh, um, new districts may be created, the city may pass some of the bonds they're talking about. There may be, expiration of other capital levies may expire. Operating levies may or may not be renewed, may appear at different rates. So all of this you try to build into your estimate or not?
No, my understanding, and I'd be interested to know if the assessor's understanding as well, is the moment of measurement is when the improvements go onto onto the rolls, and you use the tax rates in effect at that time, and then they just increase 3%. So if local option
when they
levies
fall off,
go,
at the end of the period when they come off, then they're gonna be out of whack with everything and they're gonna have to somehow get back in whack, but you probably have a mechanism to do that.
Well, as I understand it,
Whackifying,
you're not trying to determine the taxes that would be paid over the life. You're trying to make sure that the loan gets repaid over the life. And so you're calculating, as I understand it, Commissioner Babbitts, you take the pre-project baseline taxes minus fire district taxes from the last certified roll.
right?
And then you take the post-project estimate minus fire district taxes, and that becomes the annual increment calculation that then you amortize over the life of the loan. Is how I understand it.
Right, so that's what they will be paying. That's what out of pocket the developer is paying, and that goes towards the loan. And then when they finish paying off the loan, they're back on the tax rolls at that point, right?
Right.
And at that point, the amount that they're paying could be significantly different than that, right?
Correct. Typically, the way exemptions work when they come out, that's an exception event. And so then whatever the value is at the time of the property coming out of exemption, we'd calculate the new MAV and then the assessed value off of that.
Okay, thank you.
so I wanted to get into some of the key points of the state minimum program standards, but then some of the supplemental city rules that we've put in place. So state rules, as I mentioned, is maximum of 120% of area median income. There has to be a gap pro forma analysis where you determine that this project would not happen but for the support of this rural program. So especially when we think about is that, the opportunity cost of this taxable value to the overlapping districts, this gets into just hitting on this development just won't exist if under any circumstance. If there's not rural assistance. And then yeah, it's I'd say a notable point of this program is it's just extremely flexible. So many housing programs are kind of just totally tied up in red tape, lots of administrative costs to administer, and very specific and prescriptive in their uses. This can be for land write-downs, materials, soft costs, hard costs. It's very flexible funding source. And then there's a 10-year minimum affordability period, or the length of the loan if it ends up going for longer than 10 years. But as noted, we have no intention of going longer than 10 years locally. Now that's the state minimum, but localities are encouraged to meld this program as much as they want to their local needs. And so we've added on to this that the grant will not be provided upfront. It will be provided based on construction milestones that roughly align with work in progress assessment of taxable value. So only as taxable value is created by doing the foundation, doing the framing, the plumbing, finishing, as that roughly corresponds to taxable value increase will be the proportion in which the grant is paid out. This is to guard against us putting out money ahead of the repayment source, the ultimate repayment source coming together, which is taxable value creation. And then we've also limited this to nonprofit developers only. And that is to start small. We only know that the Big River Community Land Trust wants to take advantage of this, so we know that they will, the one person who's interested will be able to use it. And this also helps with that gap pro forma analysis, because we know that because we're not evaluating, are they getting a reasonable profit? And, given market conditions, we're just noting that we'll know that the money that they're getting is making the project pencil or making it pencil, reaching deeper levels of affordability, and that none of it's going to developer profit. So that's why we're starting with nonprofit developers only.
So that last comment you made, so all the text around the gap pro forma analysis, I found very kind of disturbing. It was really hard to understand how, any project, any developer can come along and say, I wouldn't touch this if you don't give me money. I mean, I know you've dealt with a fair amount of this yourself. So tell me, how is it, you just described, you said that the developer can go to a deeper level of affordability using this benefit. That doesn't sound to me like it matches the language that was used in the statute about what the gap pro forma has to determine. It says it has to determine that, but for this program, this development could not exist. And you're saying, no, it's just going to be better reason.
Well, I think could not exist at that, say, maybe it pencils doing 120% and they're able to do 100%. Well, that 100% project wouldn't have existed but for Merle. It's the way I see it.
Well, but then anything would meet that requirement.
That's where I think, that was our approach with the nonprofit developers is.
Okay, because it's nonprofit, then you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
So the fact is that that all the benefit will accrue to the purchasers.
Yep.
So the fact that this language is kind of mumbo jumbo that says that anything can qualify, that's okay because it is used in the right way.
That's our view. It gets us out of, it's very difficult to, especially as a local government, discern what a reasonable rate of return is for a private investor. So stepping aside that and to your point, saying just if you're nonprofit and this will help you improve the characteristics of your project, then that improved project wouldn't have happened but for.
If a project benefits from getting a zero interest loan, then it qualifies basically. Grant.
Yeah. From the developers getting the grant. Yeah, it's the subsequent taxpayer.
This is being paid back by the taxes that the developers have to pay. Okay, got it.
Yes. And then we will also be putting this through, we did have the grant being distributed at construction milestones as one risk mitigation strategy, but another one is we're going to run it through a city credit review committee that will, at minimum, be me and the city's finance director to review the creditworthiness and evaluate these applications to see that we do think they're viable projects.
And the city's history with this isn't great, right? There've been three projects when I say like this, three affordable housing programs, one of which resulted in insolvency, right?
I'm not aware of that history, no.
So previous to the current, the agency that you're on the board of, what was it called? Mid-Columbia? Yeah, Mid-Columbia Housing Authority. So its predecessor ended in let's say in not the most positive way.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that, but I know we're all new personnel and our finance director specifically has a long and has a long tenure in real estate underwriting.
Oh, it was not the city's fault,
Okay.
but this is all the property out on May Street, 30th, that area out there. That was originally owned by the housing authority that wound up going under.
Yeah, well, and I'd
So,
say,
so it's good that you're worried about this, that I'm simply saying it's good that you're addressing this because there is a history. In any development, there's going to be issues of solvency, but in this area, this city, we don't have a great history here.
absolutely. And anything in business is not guaranteed and things happen and people, projects go insolvent over time. But yeah, we're trying to guard against it in these kind of three specific ways. So to give you maybe a more tangible sense of what this would look like on the ground. This past winter, the city executed an intergovernmental agreement with the Hood River Urban Renewal Agency to administer this MURL program on a citywide basis. Why I'm sitting here presenting to you today. We have enacted our ordinance, and one of the next steps will be for the county and the state to sign an intergovernmental agreement. And I understand that that is being currently revised and has not been sent to the county yet, but that will be at a future meeting. And it's essentially because we need the assessor's office's help administering the in lieu payment mechanism. Then this summer, we hope to have a master agreement with Oregon Housing and Community Services and open our MURL program. We would then hope that Big River Community Land Trust applies and is provisionally approved. Work through all the application process and loan agreements. And then a project-specific intergovernmental agreement is required. In winter, we would adopt a project-specific resolution, which is another required step. And then in spring of 2027, the city would draw the full MURL loan, but hold it essentially in escrow for Big River Community Land Trust to actually begin construction in order to receive their grant in tranches. This is the point where the local agencies receive compensation of administrative allocation. So the city receives 5% of the MURL amount for admin cost allocation, and the county receives 1% for managing the in lieu payment. Based on Big River Community Land Trust's planned construction schedule, they would then work through 2029, sell the homes, and then the MURL would be repaid over 10 years, and some time around 2040, the homes would go onto the general tax rolls.
Does the deed restriction affect the value?
Yes, and we have tried to estimate that. So we estimate that if they did the first 42 homes all at once, which we're not sure if they'll be able to do that, based at we would use the artificially lower purchase price as the market value, and then apply the change property ratio to that. So it would be discounted from their market value. I don't know. So add to that.
What I would say regarding that is, so the city, well, the applicant's required, I believe, and I don't know if it's that, I'd have to review that, is required to get an appraisal to identify what the post value would be. And my guess is that they would be taking into the fact that any deed restrictions. I mean, that's a normal part of any appraisal process.
So one would presume that the value that these achieve on the tax rolls is going to be lesser than it would have been if they weren't deed restricted,
That's my assumption.
more affordable.
Any idea of just a wag, not holding you to it? Certainly won't be here in 2040. Mostly certain of what that might be in terms of how much lesser value that could potentially be?
I don't have a sense.
Are the deed restrictions infinite, or is it for an extended, a specific period of time?
Infinite. Yeah, Chair, would it be helpful if I just spend a minute explaining how the Big River Community Land Trust, how land trust process works?
Sure.
So the land trust is a nonprofit community development entity who is tax exempt. And so they hold the land into perpetuity, and they only sell the improvement. They only sell the home, and they keep the land forever. And they place a covenant on the property that allows it when they sell it at a discount, but then it can only be resold at an agreed upon rate in the future. And usually it's an escalator, something like 3% per year. So the house can only increase in value 3% per year. So this is called a shared equity model. And so it's not purely renting, where the nonprofit entity or the housing authority owns the house, or owns the unit and the land, and you're just given a discounted rent. But it's also not completely free market where you own the land and it can appreciate indefinitely with no ceiling. It's this in-between model where the land is publicly owned and the home may appreciate, and you do generate some equity as you pay off your mortgage, but it's not unlimited without a ceiling, and that way it remains permanently affordable for the next family who moves into that house.
I have a question. So the land that they are considering is currently tax exempt because it's church owned. So were this a private property, then they would go through the process to get an exemption for the property from property taxes?
From Tucker Road, do you know?
But this property will not be tax exempt.
Oh.
It is not owned by the church. It's owned by Big River Community Land Trust, which it will be taxable.
My apologies. Thank you for that.
That's based on use, right?
There are a variety of exemption programs. Some are based on use, some are based on ownership. In this case, I don't see an exemption program that would apply to this property. So, and I don't believe that the Merle program allows an additional exemption program to exist on the same property.
Thanks. Big Rivers Community Land Trust, their home on Tucker Road. So the land
Yeah.
underneath is paying taxes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a different program than this.
Okay.
So
Sorry, I stand corrected. My apologies.
So it's currently not on the tax roll, but if this program were to start, would it start at that point, or would it start in 2040?
this property is on the tax.
It is currently on the tax roll.
Well, to be clear, it wasn't on the tax roll in 25, it will be on the tax roll in 26.
Because of the
It was,
sale.
Because it was acquired by Big River.
Okay,
it was a church
Yeah.
property.
okay,
Coming out of exemption.
gotcha.
Do we have any other
I have a lot, but I'm gonna.
questions? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, that is the end of my presentation, and just say the next step is in sometime in the future, I believe an IGA will be coming to the county to have the assessor's office play their role in administering our local program.
So I'll take the softball question. Sorry, Arthur. So for this to go forward, there is a necessity for the county to sign an IGA.
Yeah, the county is integral to the process.
Go ahead, softball taken.
Okay, so I had a bunch of policy level questions that I tried to give you a little warning beforehand. Number one is, what sort of discretion does the city have on how it uses this program, on who it decides, other than the requirement that they be, you have a statute, your local code says it has to be a not-for-profit developer, but what other authority do you have in this program?
Yeah, and I'll ask any Merle staff to step in if I say anything incorrect, but I believe we can put nearly as many restrictions on this as we wish to. Right now, we're leaving it fairly wide open. with just nonprofit developers only. It will go through a credit review committee to make sure that it's a viable project. But other than that, if they meet the minimum standards from the state, that is the only restrictions that we're putting on it right now.
I guess so my questions come down to, with tax increment financing, there's a limitation on the total amount of the land mass of the county and the tax base of the county that are allowed to be within urban renewal districts. I don't see any similar limitation here. Now, I know that this is brand new and we don't have people knocking on the door right now, but if you have no way of saying no, and there's no limitation, given we're talking about things to benefit people at 120% of AMI, which is more than half of the county residents, how do we know that there's not some weird future in which our taxing ability has been absorbed into this program?
Yeah, I'd say the first line of defense is that many of our program rules exist just via created by city council resolution and can be updated just as quickly through city council resolution, which is a very rapid process. So if we see this getting out of control, we have the ability to, I'd say, lower it to 100% or 80% or put on some additional guardrails or maybe put an absolute cap on the amount of MRL that we're going to award. I think it's just practically speaking early to be putting on those restrictions right now, but those do exist as tools.
But that's at the city council's discretion. The board of commissioners has no, we may have a different view as to what is a problem than the city council might. City council might be thrilled at the results that they're getting, and we might not be.
Yeah, I believe it is at city council discretion to create all the program rules.
Is that it?
Well, let me get into a sort of broader subject. Yeah, you showed a graph showing the housing that was being built, and you talked about how that big bump in the graph was due to the activities of the Mariposa Village project, and now you're working on this project, and it feels to me like the city has adopted a policy. There's Mr. Trenchcoat detective. Yeah, it feels like the city has adopted a policy where the city's basically going to be building everything, and you don't seem to be depending very much on private development, which has me concerned. And I guess I would ask a related question of what happened to the annexation discussion that we had initiated, and what other attempts is the city making to increase the rate of private development as opposed to focusing on city initiated developments.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because we have been working on this diligently, I'd say, well, since the 90s, but really in 2015, spurred on by the buildable lands inventory at that time. Ever since then, I know housing affordability has been priority number one for the city council. We regulated short-term rentals. We have, updated our townhome code, reduced parking requirements for renovation of historic buildings, adopted a middle housing code, which allows you to build much higher densities and have reduced parking requirements if you build more modest sized homes. Gosh, there's a list. My list is about like 15 to 20 initiatives and programs long of ways that we have tried to use a carrot and stick approach with the private market. I think and becoming a builder of affordable housing has been not something that we volunteered for, and it's a role that we were initially very uncomfortable with. But when we're seeing raw land costs for buildable lots be $350,000 and higher, there's just no room left over to build anything on that that's going to serve the 120% of AMI or less. So I think progressively, and I don't want to speak for the city council directly, but I could maybe infer from us, going for a housing bond this November, likely that we're seeing that if folks who earn wages typical of maybe a nurse or retail worker, food service, if those folks are going to be able to have a place in our community, that the housing units may be needed to be provided more as a utility and less as a us creating the table and hoping that the private market comes in and fills it.
And you and I have talked about this a fair amount, just for to be honest about the whole thing. And I'll just go on the record as saying I find it to be a very disturbing world in which the things the city has done so to date have either been ineffective or have not been effective enough compared to the changes in the market. So we haven't kept ahead of anything. We've fallen further behind relative to the statewide and national averages, I believe. And that says to me that we're not doing those moves aggressively enough to accept that instead the solution is that the city is going to be effectively the developer or the funder of development is a very scary prospect to me, because I just don't think has the capacity to do that. So I'm concerned. And you don't, what can you say about the annexation? Because we had a presentation, we had the person who did the study came to us and he described 3 different scenarios that made sense as potential annexation. But we haven't heard anything from the city council since then.
Yeah, I'm sorry, not super tapped into that
Is that before you?
discussion. But I don't believe that we've changed our policy about requiring we're requiring annexation before extension of sewer. And I don't think we've taken
There's a specific request that the Board of Commissioners made to the city to investigate doing
proactive,
large scale proactive annexations. And the city hired a contractor who did analysis, presented that analysis to us. That analysis showed 3 specific areas of the city where that the numbers penciled out that the city could do it without losing money on it and could create more land that could be developed, which goes to your issue of not having developable land. But we haven't heard anything other than the city's really not looking at that anymore.
Yeah, I'm not aware that we've changed our approach.
Abigail to explain.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and if I might jump in there, I think Abigail had indicated that we went through the process and the county participated in the process with the consultant from Portland State University, but it was an item that needed to be put on a work plan. And so I think my encouragement of the board in your conversations with your city council liaisons was to encourage that to be on their work plan.
I would consider it already on their work plan of housing being the #1 priority.
It would be nice to be that. Yeah, I don't think they really ever explained that to us, did they?
I explained it when we were coming out of the annexation process in regards to next steps. And so I think there's been some interceding time. And so keeping that on their radar is important, which you are doing now.
And I've talked directly to city councilors who seem unaware of that died because it wasn't going to work. That's what they told me.
I've also met with city council members about it, and I don't know if they haven't seen the support from their own staff to do it, but I find that when I spoke, those city council members that I've met with are also in agreement that it is a priority and also want to meet with us as commissioners more regularly so that we make sure it's not blocked and that we're moving forward with. collaboration so that we can ensure that there's more development.
Yeah. I guess what I see is, I don't want to get kind of too far ahead of this, but it's a interesting program that has promised to have, there's certainly some utility to this program, absolutely, understand that. Because it's brand new, it sounds like you're willing to be the guinea pig, the first to go through it. And it really smells, I mean, reading all of this text, it sounded like something that, boy, they really haven't figured this out completely yet. And you've admitted that's the case, but you think it's worthwhile to work with the state. The state's going to put effort in. You told me on getting this all sorted out. But I am concerned about, we're a small community and putting a whole bunch of effort into getting this thing worked out, when we got that picture there that says that, but for this, we're not going to see anything. It's like, well, that's not, we're just gonna, that's gonna kill us.
I mean, I have the same concern too. I think we all know we need more housing in this community, but given the limited availability of land, it is a driver of price. And if we get what little availability we have locked up with no taxes seen to the county and the city for the next 10, 12 years, that's scary as well.
It would be interesting to know what that amount is. It's hard for me to figure out the amount that will be lost,
Oh,
The potential loss.
the potential loss.
For the Big River Community Land Trust, which is the only thing that is, even coming close to being tangible, we estimated $880,000 would be the Merle grant amount. So that would be the sum of 10 years of their taxable value. But I would just note that if Big River Community Land Trust wasn't building this land would just remain an empty field, a tax exempt empty field of a church.
Well, that's not knowable. I mean, I know that there were other groups that were looking at acquiring this land for other purposes, so I'm not sure that that's true.
I believe the church made a mission-based decision, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
So this, you said this is the required consultation.
The program does require that the city consult with the governing body of the county. The ordinance is in effect, however, the consultation had not occurred. And so I would procedurally consider this the consultation. And then what we've heard this evening is that there is work coming on the IGA. And so we would bring that to you at a future meeting for your consideration.
Doesn't that seem a little, or I guess, doesn't that seem a little backwards, to have the consultation after the ordinance has been passed?
It was a
It's not-
step.
It's not for you to answer that, I
Right.
guess. I will put out there that, I think that this was done in an awkward manner. I would feel better if we had been talking about this before an actual ordinance was passed.
Well, the recommendation here is to provide direction to staff on whether to proceed with an intergovernmental agreement, which is what we'll take up in our,
And it's not clear what discretion we have on that.
it is not clear to me what discretion we have on that. Yes. Correct. Do we have discretion on that?
I think first we want to see the form of the intergovernmental agreement. And then if the city has gone through the steps to become a sponsoring entity, which then does invoke our assessor to be a part of the program for the county. So, yes.
That doesn't sound like we have much discretion.
Right.
Thank you.
I mean, it says, so we're required, the program can't, they can't go forward if we don't have an IGA with the state.
Right.
But can we be forced to have an IGA with the state, or are we allowed to decide that we want to, or that we're not satisfied, or, there's a question of whether there is actually discretion as to whether we agree to work with the state on this or not.
And I think that would come in the form of the intergovernmental agreement that we see.
And whether or not we choose to sign it. But the work to put the IGA together will proceed because the city will proceed with it.
My understanding.
Yeah, my direction from city council is to proceed and to implement this local program. But we were waiting on the text of the IGA, as the administrator noted.
Have any of you talked to any city councilors about this program?
No. Well, we can take it up in our
Yep.
Yep.
Meeting. Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
presentation. And we are it's already after 6. And so we could move the carbon project to our regular meetings and have it happen under work session items and have the presentation then, if is that an okay thing to do to the?
Yes.
All right, well, then we'll take a couple minute break and we will come back and at 6:10 and start the meeting. How's that sound? Okay, so I will call our business meeting to order for the Hood River County Board of Commissioners at 6:12 on June 15th, 2026. Are there additions or deletions to the agenda? We have a supplemental agenda that we need to add, and we need to remove item J. No. Is it J?
F.
F, excuse me. Yeah, we need to remove F, which is our end of fiscal year meeting, because it has to be rescheduled. So this is the wrong date for it. It has to happen closer to the end of the year. So do we have a motion to add the supplemental agenda and remove F from the consent agenda? All right,
Second.
moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Moretti?
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitt?
Yes.
Commissioner Munzer?
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Are there any conflicts or potential conflicts of interest? Hearing none.
We all have,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Can you say this in my mouth?
We all have a conflict of interest with the budget hearings because our salaries are included in the budget.
Thank you.
So that is now disclosed. All right, so we will start with our I will call the fiscal year 26-27 budget public hearing to order and ask for a staff report.
You want me up here or not?
What about it?
Some of that will sneak in here. We'll cut these pillars out of the room so that you can see.
Seems like a bad idea.
Really?
Yeah, no, ceiling might take that.
He's the engineer there.
It seems like an idea.
The budget committee really worked hard this year, right? We made a lot of changes. You've got a schedule, I think, today of all the changes that we made during the budget committee meetings. And we're here today to say thank you for all those meetings and all your work. Chris left. We're looking.
Oh, I was gonna say, you left over.
She just left, a member of the budget committee, so. We think we have a strong budget to put forth for your adoption tonight. It's approved by the budget committee. Do you have any questions for us?
Just a comment. I think the budget committee did work very hard. Staff worked really hard. I want to thank you for that. I just personally am not thrilled with the results that we have, but it's not because of a lack of hard work. It's a math problem. It's a financial challenge that we need to work through. So I want to thank you for the hard work, and I want to thank the budget committee who's not here for their hard work, because it's not an easy task.
No, so.
Any other questions?
I think it's important that we state to, this is possibly a greater public listening than it usually would, why it is that you're concerned. And do you want to explain, or should I?
Oh, I mean, I'm concerned about the trajectory. We are providing more services than revenues. It's going to greatly affect if we don't find either efficiencies or revenue streams. The services we provided, that we currently provide, and the people that we employ. So I am certainly concerned about our trajectory.
And so we as a group have agreed that we have 1 year to address the unsustainability of our current budget. And our able staff has been working hard on making a series of proposals. We're gonna be hearing more in July
Yes.
about what possibilities we have. But whatever happens, we can't continue to spend at this rate. And we've defined a 1 year trajectory that we can afford to spend at this rate for 1 more year. At the end of this year, we will still have acceptable reserves, but we discussed as a group that we're not willing to go below those reserves. So we have to get the spending in line with the revenues by the end of the fiscal year that we're talking about today.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else from the commission? Are there any comments from the public in person or online? No. Okay. Are there any more questions from commissioners? Okay. I will now close the public hearing and call for commissioners' deliberations. And each budget requires a motion. And the first one is the Windmaster Sewer District. I think you guys all have this. It's the,
I guess I'm sorry, I have a question, just a technical question. So, but we have this sheet which shows a bunch of changes which presumably match the requests we made, and it looks, from a cursory view, it looks like it covers it, and I have no reason to doubt that. But if these are the sorts of changes that could be adjusted, basically, if something was done incorrectly, because you've been rushing to get this out, right? So if something was done incorrectly, there is a procedure to make corrections, correct?
Well, yeah, there are procedures. It depends on what the nature of the error is. Yeah, there's corrections of errors that have fairly basic ones. If it ends up being something that's in between categories, there's potential requirement for another hearing. If we need to republish in only one. So it would depend on the nature of the error.
So why don't you tell us what errors you made?
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
The review of the sheet is a replication of what was in front of you at the last budget meeting.
Yeah, it looks the same.
Yes. Yes, and so then that was just flowed through to be reflected in the final budget document that was a part of the packet. And this just recaptures all those changes in a one-page format.
I'm just always nervous when I haven't come through and found every item myself, so
Right.
I'm just asking, trying to
Yeah,
understand.
so,
how it
yeah,
works.
it's this schedule, that's summary there is page 19 and
18 and 19.
18 and 19 in the final budget. And then all those, you see the division and the category that it's in, and then those all flow through to those detail level pages of those.
any more questions? Okay, so we have 4 different districts, 4 different public hearings. And the first one, we require a motion.
I would be happy to make the first motion.
Okay.
And ironically, we have 4 commissioners. We're not the chair, and we have 4 motions to make. That's
Are you,
really ironic. So I'm gonna make a motion that we
are you,
adopt the Windmaster Sewer District budget with no taxes levied as presented from July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2027.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion about Windmaster? Okay. Commissioner Munzer?
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers?
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitt?
Yes,
Commissioner Moretti?
Yeah,
Chair votes yes. All right, who's up for the Windmaster Urban Renewal
I'll
District?
do it.
Okay,
I make a motion to approve the Windmaster Urban Renewal District budget with no taxes levied as presented from July 1, 2026 through June 30th of 2027.
adopt. You meant adopt.
Adopt, sorry.
I'll second the amended motion.
It's seconded and thirded and seconded by Commissioner Babbitts. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Moretti,
yes,
Commissioner Babbitts,
Yes.
Commissioner Munzer,
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers.
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
I would make a motion to adopt the Hood River County 911 Communications District budget with a permanent rate levy and rate limit of 56.44 cents per thousand as presented from July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027.
second,
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Moretti,
yes,
Commissioner Babbitts.
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers.
Yes.
Commissioner Munzer,
Yes.
chair votes yes.
I'll make a motion to adopt the Hood River County budget permanent rate levy, rate limit $1.4171 per thousand, and local option levy. And rate limit is 0.78 per 1,000 as presented from July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, Commissioner Munzer.
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers.
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitts.
Yes.
Commissioner Mataretti.
Yes,
Chair votes yes. So the budget is approved with the Windmaster Sewer District budget with no taxes levied as presented from July 1st, 26 to June 30th, 27. Windmaster Urban Renewal District with no taxes levied as presented from July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. Hood River County 911 Communications District budget with a permanent rate levy and rate limit of 0.5644 per thousand as presented from July 1st, 2026 to July 30th, 2027. And the Hood River County budget permanent rate levy rate limit 1.4171 per thousand, and local option levy and rate limit is 0.78 per thousand as presented from July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
And I want to thank the people, the community members that stepped up to be on the budget committee. They were great. They were big, they were totally engaged and really helpful. So they did the work. They did.
Just too many mats.
There were too many mouths. There were a lot of. Hey, do we have any public comment? No? Well, then let's start with our county administrator's report.
Good evening. First item of business, today, the regional forester from ODF issued the regulated use closure. It is effective at 12:01 tomorrow. So it's still within my authority to call for the ban on fireworks per our ordinance 376. So we will send out a press release this evening to that effect. We were debating, we weren't quite sure if they were doing it tomorrow or later this week, which would have invoked then your authority to do that through the form of an order. And so timing worked out well for today.
I thought that it's your discretion, you consult with the forester, so even if they did it effective the 16th instead of the 15th, wouldn't you have the authority to make that declaration?
The ordinance specifies that after the 15th, it is the Board of
No,
Commissioners.
but you could do it before the 15th based on knowledge that the forester is doing it on the 16th, for example.
I think it's triggered by the actual declaration, proclamation is, I believe what they call it.
Well, I thought that, okay. I thought, consultation, okay.
Okay.
I'm good,
so-
I'm glad it worked out.
Yes, yes. So we will get that press release out tonight. So officially fireworks are banned and then our ordinance invokes it after July 5th. The second item has been the ongoing discussion in regards to the emergency declaration with regard to the pear growers. We have been working diligently and having many conversations with Oregon Department of Agriculture, with Farm Services Agency, with MCED, with the governor's office through Nate Stice. I think it will require a federal action, and so we actually are working through the process through the governor's office. It appears that it will require a form of a declaration from us. We're waiting for the wording from FSA. This has been a learning process for us because the 2025 crop, in regards to its qualification for the programs that are in place and the emergency declarations that we would issue, just fell outside of those regulated timeframes. And so I just want to tip our hat to our growers who have been very emphatic about this. And I feel like on the part of the county, we have been there to staff and all of you expressing our support. And so it is just a matter of getting the right mechanism there. So that is forthcoming.
So I'm sorry, are we hopeful of some relief?
So I think we are. I think it would come perhaps in the form of a deviation within the specialty crop program. It's going to
It's
require.
unfair, but you're hopeful.
We are hopeful. We had members of our federal delegation involved in the conversations too. So they are engaged. So more to come. The big item is at this meeting, we had originally anticipated the Baker Tilly report, but given all of the changes that occurred with that last budget meeting, that needed to be flowed through their report, and there were a number of changes that needed to be made. And so it is giving us the time to work through that and bring it to the July meeting. To that end, knowing that we went through our rigorous budget process and there is the concept of perhaps a measure. I did put a calendar together. I will need to do some further consultation with legal counsel with regard to the type of measure it is. Because if there is an ordinance that requires some additional time out in front of it, but it would basically have the Baker Tilly report in July, have an in-depth meeting with the Board of Commissioners to establish priorities and work plan in August. We would then review the analysis behind whichever method the board desires in September and October, and then make decisions in November and December if it were in regard to an election next spring, which is a special district election. So the spring elections do not have a voter's pamphlet, which is an interesting nuance to an election. So it would really require some heavy duty work on our part. I think we're ready to roll up our sleeves and do what we need to do within this budget year. So more to come on that in July. After the last meeting, I did actually city manager Abigail Elder listened to our meeting in regards to the Uber and Lyft conversation. Those conversations are ongoing and we'll have an update for you at the next meeting. I just wanted to acknowledge that through all of the hard work that we did during the budget process and rolling up sleeves, we're also doing the hard work to make our employees feel appreciated and valued. And I just wanted to give kudos to our human resources department. They worked through CIS and got a $10,000 wellness grant. And they have been working with all of the departments based on feedback from our employee engagement survey about what would be of value to them. And our break spaces looked sad and tired. And so there have been paint rollers and furniture arriving in Rada Paint in Gresham provided a donation of paint. And so it's pretty amazing when you see the before and after of these spaces. And sometimes those things show that the work that all of our employees do really matters. So I just wanted to get my hat on that.
How did we get a
Rod of
paint company outside of our community?
I asked and batted my eye.
We said we would say rod of paint in a
Yeah.
meeting.
They were so nice to work with, like I just asked and they were like, how much do you need?
Did you get a choice of color?
Yeah,
Oh,
Like, and the choice of which paint I wanted.
wow.
He was like, how about premium? Sounds great.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you were out of paint.
Yes.
Hey, Gresham.
All right, so I think those are the major things for my administrator's report. We are still tracking from a hiring standpoint at a greater, our turnover rate is 10%. We have 8 open positions. That's this budget year. Obviously, that number will change because we've carved some of those out for next budget year. So we will continue to monitor that on a monthly basis. And I just want to say that I want to acknowledge all of our departments who the work they do every day is really critical and important, and it takes staff to do it. And so we are leaving positions open. And it is a hardship, and I recognize that for all of our departments. And so I think the work that we had to do during the budget process, for example, to turn around the rates and fees that were in your consent agenda, that took some rolling up of sleeves. So I just want to acknowledge the hard work that's happening here. And I want to thank Doug Teesies for inviting me to the Recreational Trails Committee meeting. I went and presented an overview of our budget as they were considering recommendations of parking pass fee increases, which are included in that item in your consent agenda. So I think that went over very well. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Where shall we start? Should we start in the middle? We'll start with Commissioner Weathers.
I'm going to pass tonight. I really don't have anything to add. I do want to make a comment in regards to the work that you've done with Columbia Gorge fruit growers and others, and trying to find a way to help our growers in our community. Those who may or may not know, I've been in this industry for most of my life, 35 years, and it's the ugliest I've ever seen. And
So since you were 5.
Yes, thank you. Since I was 5, this is the most challenging year that we've ever seen. We're seeing a downturn in our ability to continue to farm. Economics aren't lining up, and this was truly a disaster. Now, whether it fits in the disaster box is a question, but the fact that it is truly an economic disaster is true, and it's real, and we all feel it. So thank you. I know we have lots of things that we need to do with limited staff, but just wanted to say that.
I'll follow Commissioner Weathers because my family also works in the fair industry, and I appreciate all the hard work going into that, trying to figure this out as something new and awkward when you're trying to declare an emergency for the previous year. And appreciate all the time. And again, also with the budget, appreciate all of that and all the staff who is taking on more work. And it really shows how dedicated they are to the county, and to really appreciate everyone who works for the county. And I wanted to mention that. Not a lot to report on, a lot of budget meetings for Mid-Columbia Center for Living. Tomorrow we'll have our public hearing to approve the budget finally, and Mid-Columbia Housing Authority canceled our meeting with the passing of Commissioner Bill Brady, but Commissioner Scott Heggie has been stepping in for the Center for Living Board at the moment. That's it. As we mentioned earlier, meeting with city council members about how we can partner the county and city to help support housing. The cities in the west side area.
Why don't you go next?
Sure. Let's see, so Chair, you and I will be going to the Association of Oregon Counties annual retreat, I guess they call it, which is kind of where legislative priorities for the year are set, for the session are set. So that's a reminder to all commissioners to kind of review all the materials that AOC has sent us, and to, if you've got any things you want us to be dogging, let us know so that we can keep on top of them. You know, the lists are huge because it's pretty much everything the legislature could possibly be planning to consider. But we need to keep on top of that because these are our lobbyists effectively. And then the second thing is the bridge. We continue to wait to see if the US Department of Transportation proceeds with the bridge investment program grants for the calendar year 2025. I guess it would be fiscal year 2025. And we don't, you know, we hear every, you know, it's first we'll hear, oh, there's good noises coming, then you hear, oh, there's nothing coming, and then we hear, oh, there's good noises coming. So, you know, I've just learned it will happen when it happens, and we are eager to we're currently working on getting the bridge construction ready effectively. So we're at, I forget what percentage design documents we're at now, but we had a meeting of the aesthetics committee to follow up on aesthetic treatments, and we have the structural design is proceeding. The instrumentation of the current bridge is basically done now. There's still a few issues, but the issue there is that they want to know that when they start to construct the new bridge, which is very close to the old bridge, that the old bridge doesn't start to move. I think I described this before, maybe I haven't, but anyway, you can imagine why that's important. So there's a bunch of position sensors that are very sensitive that go across space to mirrors elsewhere and measure the exact position of a whole bunch of points on the bridge, as well as the depth of the river and the wind speed and all sorts of stuff. So we have all this instrumentation set up, and we're starting to collect data, and that will hopefully inform the bridge project. There is an interesting piece of it, which is that we want to do a program to do a test piling, where we basically drill into the bottom of the river to see how the bridge reacts to it, and do that now, so that if we find that the bridge is moving, that we can then redesign the new bridge to mitigate or to address that movement. But we're struggling with that quite a bit, basically because of insurance. We're not insured for the potential of us knocking down the bridge. Now, obviously, we're not going to be knocking it down, but we're not insured for that. So we are working through all the details to figure out how we can do a test piling program, which is a very expensive thing to start with, and how we can do so and be, for us in the port and community, to be adequately covered for the tiny but existing risk that that program would have.
So presumably a test piling would become one of the pilings of the new bridge.
Know that one would hope so, but I
One
do
would
not
hope
know
so.
that. I just know that it involves drilling in the way that the drilling is intended to happen. And it's been described to me that, you know, the way the current bridge was built, it was, you know, they had a steam hammer that went bonk, 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 and it drove a wooden piling down into the muck. And when it stopped, they stopped, and you can't do that now. First of all, that would definitely disturb the current bridge. So they have this thing which is more like you're screwing a shaft in and then putting concrete and steel in there. So it's just different technology that's used today.
Yeah.
And So it's that sort of motion that they need to test, and can't give you any more specifics on that.
Maybe wait till after fruit harvest.
So here's the problem. This is one of the reasons why we're sweating this is it has to be done during the in-water work window, which is always hard to say, but that is from
The IWWW.
Is it October 15th through? I forget what the time is, but there's actually a very limited amount of time. It's about 120 days a year or something like that, that you're actually allowed to do things like this in the water. And this is going to obviously seriously affect the bridge construction too. The bridge is being designed around this window. But this test would have to be done during that window because you can't be making these noises when the fish are in a sensitive part of their life cycle. So that's going to be an issue too. Yeah. Anyway, people are quite aware. Doug Gibson is on our board. He's one of our commissioners, so he has not been shy about sharing his concerns, and so I think food growers are well represented in this process. That's probably the most politic thing I can say about that. Yeah. So our fingers are crossed that we get this federal money. Everything else is proceeding according to our current schedule. In fact, they've been slowly identifying costs that can be reduced in various places as the design gets more refined. They've reduced costs, not increased costs, which is good. That's what you hope for at this stage in a project, but we are seeing that. But and I think I forwarded to you guys. Senator Merkley did each to not Secretary of Transportation, maybe Federal Highways, but it was on the floor of the Senate, and he just did a wonderful job of covering all the pluses and the reasons why this is a good project. And I thought whoever, our lobbying staff who helped prepare him for this did a brilliant job because it's just a really well done, tight description of why this is a good project for local area and for the country and why it should be supported.
Great.
That's it.
All right.
I don't think I have a lot to add tonight. I didn't do any great outings, no. Been in all the meetings and stuff. I mean, obviously, I understand the fruit industry problem that everybody's having as I work in that too and feel it. And I think Leslie Tamira has been very influential on that, which she needs a shout out for sure. And yeah.
What about our field trip?
Oh, me and Arthur, or me and Commissioner Babbitt did take a field trip on the east side on the side by sides with some side by side committee people, and we had quite a little adventure looking at all the options that might be available up there in the future, and plan that eventually I think we can work on. Conversation I think I need to have at some point with Doug, and it was a good time. They showed us around and everything that's going on up there, and I think it was very helpful for both of us to see that because I haven't been up there in quite some time either.
It was great for me just to even have an understanding of what properties the county does own up there, what the different timber stands look like, and that was I enjoyed doing that. A lot faster than going around on my bike.
Yes.
Well, I went to an Energy Council meeting. The Energy Council, you guys, we hear about it periodically. They have been working on grants for the last 2 or 3 years, and they finally have enough grants to do some fairly big projects. And one of these is this broad evaluation of energy resilience countywide for emergency planning. And in order to get this grant, they need to figure out a way to value the lost revenue in the case of an emergency because of the loss of power. And then what they're trying to figure out is how much power they'll need for various things. And I think I talked about this in a previous meeting, but the first priority is to have buildings like the hospital and care centers able to continue to have power in an emergency when the power is cut off, or when we have less power than we need. And then there are other broader things within the valley that they'd like to look into. So they're working on that. I went to the R1 Act meeting. And they are continuing to figure out how to evaluate the capital improvement projects, the capital improvement programs. There needs to be better organization. There's an awful lot of people on the R1 Act, and the interests are really disparate. So you've got Multnomah County talking about the Rose Quarter, and then you've got us talking about Odell. So it's a work in progress. It's challenging, but I think ODOT is committed to figuring out how to evaluate the capital improvement programs with the group that we have. And one other thing that I heard on one of the AOC meetings was that they are working on housing in unincorporated rural communities, and they're going to have rules committee discussing how to simplify that, I believe.
Is this in natural resources?
No, it was in transportation and land use.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was in natural resources. That's all. And
Chair Ewer, I was looking at Eric Walker back there. You did get appointed to the Rules Committee?
oh, did you?
Not officially. Okay,
Yeah.
he's working on it.
We didn't ruin it. We didn't hurt your chances, did we?
No,
Okay.
Well, that is great news. I'm very glad.
it's not final, but there's a good chance.
Okay. Yeah, that would be a really it would really work out. That's what we're working on in Odell, so. It would be great if you were on that committee. Okay, now we have a
Have you
consent.
heard I'm sorry, have you heard anything on the direction for ODOT funding? In
No.
your involvement in the R1 Act? I mean, it seems like the ACT meetings would be a place where people would at least informally chat about that, but no.
Well, there's no informally chatting if it's a Zoom meeting, and I
Oh,
haven't been
right.
able to go. Rarely do they have them in person, and when they do, I do go sometimes.
Yep.
In person. So,
Thank you.
the consent agenda, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda? Minus item F.
I would move that we accept the consent agenda with the minus item.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Commissioner Munzer,
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers.
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitts.
Yes.
Commissioner Moretti.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, so the first thing on our work session action item is to discuss the moderate income revolving loan program that we just heard about. And we have been asked to provide direction to staff on whether to proceed with an intergovernmental agreement. But it sounds like the first order of business is that we're waiting on an IGA, and we won't have an IGA until at least our next meeting or sometime in the future, correct?
We had received a IGA from the OCHS staff. If I said that acronym correctly, Oregon Housing and Community Services. See, if you say the words, then you get the acronym right. And then when putting that out to legal counsel and to Brian Beebe, both responded to say that the IGA is under major revisions. And I think Brian Beebe would be able to speak to some of his concerns if you wanted a few minutes more.
We would appreciate that.
Okay.
Please, Mr. Beebe, come and share your thoughts.
I don't know how far you want to go in the weeds, and I don't really have comments actually on the IGA. There's several implementation concerns with the Merle program currently as it exists.
So it was fair to say it's not quite right yet.
It is not quite right yet, yeah. And the Department of Revenue is being asked to provide guidance to the assessors on how exactly we're supposed to administer this program. A few highlights, I mean, little things like, taxpayers they get a 3% discount when they pay their taxes on time, and how does that apply to this? And the way that taxes would be implemented, I'm not the tax collector, but as I understand it, everything goes into the unsegregated tax account, and taxes get paid out of that. So we determine a percentage, a distribution schedule for each taxing district, and this seems to fall outside of that, so our system's not even currently really designed to deal with this. There are several other, does Measure 5 apply, and our software, there's several software systems around the state, and none of them are currently set up to handle this, so it's gonna require programming for us to be able to administer this. So there's just a lot of unknowns at this point in time that need to be resolved before we could even administer this program. So.
And so we would be doing this at the very beginning before anybody besides Tillamook has started it, but.
Tillamook, the issues that have been identified are there are several communities around Oregon that are currently wrestling with some of these exact same questions. Different counties and cities have different structures of who's going to administer what and that kind of thing. And so there's just everybody's coming together going, well, how are we going to deal with this? And how are we going to deal with that? And things that just didn't get resolved in the legislation. So
Will we have any more clarity in July?
it's tough to say when the Department of Revenue will be able to provide clarity for the assessment.
There's a lot of detail. It's hard to believe that that would be available by July.
It is hard to believe that they're gonna have this resolved by July.
It seems to me like there's two separate issues. There's one that the programs kind of have a lot of rough edges which need to be worked on. The second issues are some of the policy issues which I brought up and Commissioner Weathers brought up, and I'm feeling like we should ask staff to continue to move things forward as edges are filed off, and then we should figure out a way to improve the policy communication between us and city council so that we have a policy level discussion. Maybe we need to have a joint meeting again or something so that we can get some of this addressed. And hopefully by the time the edges are smooth on that policy, I'm sorry, and that the IGA will be in a position to have figured out how we want to work with city council on this.
What's your proposed timeline? Would you like to do that before July? If possible?
I hadn't thought beyond what I just said.
Okay. In that case,
That surprises me, but.
well, in that case,
I
I mean,
don't.
I totally agree. Do you guys agree?
Well, I mean, it just looks like a lot of work for Brian.
And he gets, I think it's
For the amount of time
$8,000.
he's gonna spend doing this stuff too, just by, what we got sent to us, the amount of legwork he's gonna have to do compared to what we're getting paid to do that is pretty substantial, it looks like to me.
Well, actually, he's not paid anything for this because it's not even a program.
Right, but once
What we're paid
this
is
is put in-
after something starts.
Right,
Yeah.
but even once this is
$8,800.
put in, that $8,800 compared to
Right.
what he's gonna go through to make this work doesn't seem very equitable.
Speaking for the tax collector's office, who would be in charge of billing, collecting. It doesn't seem worth the 1% return in any way. That we would have more properties for people who deserve a place to live. And in 10 years might be able to collect some tax. Future looking, it does look ideal, but looking in this 10 years, I don't know, as we are down populating staff, how we're going to carry on that kind of program.
So Commissioner Russ, are you suggesting asking staff to wait until we have the policy level discussions?
What?
Asking Brian and Sherry and.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a lot to try to implement.
I wasn't sure how far you wanted to push that concept.
Yeah, I guess I don't know for sure. I just was looking at the cost of doing business versus what the return is, and it looks like it's gonna be a lot of work on staff's part to get this going until we really know how it will work.
I think I could push for that. Ironing out the policy issues before any implementation happens, again, because of our staffing challenges and our lack of bandwidth.
I could agree with that.
What do you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, is there any other support from the city for our team? I don't even know if that's possible.
mean, I would throw out, and Will could maybe clarify, but I will say the city has offered to give us more than 1% of the fee. I think it would be outside of the IGA, so I'm not exactly sure how that would work, but
In terms of the policy level discussions, are you guys thinking, do you have anything particular in mind about how to, do you think a joint meeting is a way to approach this, or, I mean,
I think it probably is. I'd hate to see poor Will get browbeat by us again.
yeah, it's not his fault.
I mean, you brought up you brought up a concern of mine very well. Is, what is the policy? What is, there's a plan in mind now, but given the lack of inventory, would that go on in perpetuity, and would we be locking up what little land is left and waiting for again for tax increment over a long period of time? I kind of like to get a feeling for what the city's plan would be.
I mean, mathematically, there's nothing to prevent us from locking up every piece of land in the county. I mean, not the county, in
The city.
But obviously, that's not their intention. That's not gonna happen. But how much do we need to address that before moving forward with something like this? To me, the bigger questions are, is the goal to build our way out of this with governmental projects? And I'd like to have that discussion with city council to understand what they really have in mind. How that, obviously, I did not know that they were discussing this. I didn't attend the meeting. I haven't listened to it. I haven't talked to my usual city council contacts about this, so I really don't know. I don't know the nature of the discussion that happened at city council about this. I don't know, is this something I've spent a ton of time on, or something where staff said, hey, this is a good idea, and they said, sure, why not? I don't know how deep they're how much they're depending on this, and how deep their love for this project is. I just don't know.
Well, it sounds like we have a consensus that we would like to meet with them. Yes, no?
I guess the question is, do we want to meet in an unscripted way or a scripted way? And I think the last time when we did it in a scripted way, I didn't find it to be that
Unscripted?
when we did it in a scripted way, we had a joint meeting. Maybe none of you guys were here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two Junes ago.
Yeah.
I've actually joked about the snacks being better. The county, thus the snacks behind. Yeah.
Okay, so
And you suggest.
I did not enjoy that meeting.
Okay, so what would be a meeting?
I haven't thought this through. I don't know.
Okay, well then,
I'm asking.
We could certainly think about the approach and talk about it again at the July meeting, and that way Abigail and I would have a chance to meet and discuss how that might occur and have some recommendations as well.
and have some ideas of when and when.
I guess
Okay.
what I would like to do is I would like to have discussion with the elected officials and to not have it be directed or scripted by staff. Because I want to understand what everyone is thinking and what everyone is trying to do, as opposed to what staff is trying to set up.
So, well, but the staff would have to schedule the meeting.
I'm not, that's not what I'm talking about, right?
And would you be open to having the staff available if there were questions?
Absolutely. I'm not, I want it to be a candid discussion of
Priorities.
related to housing. No.
Priorities in the future.
Priorities,
Yeah. Yeah, big picture.
Yeah. The sort of discussion that we have all the time, and I presume that they do too, and I think we need to be talking to each other
Okay.
and
I
not
agree.
just one-on-one.
It is an election year, so I know they do
Oh.
have a majority of their council up for election. I've not seeing, what the slate is, and so that may impact when you have that meeting.
Yes, always, 4 of the 7 are always up for election every, even numbered year. But that is, I'm not sure I would stop because of that, but thanks for pointing that out.
Well, how urgent is it that we get this IGA done?
There's no time frame for when the revised IGA is coming our way, so I would say we have time.
But if you look at Will's schedule on the,
Yeah.
the Big River Community Land Trust. Yeah, when, I'm sorry, can we ask Will, can you come forward, please? I wonder when we start to get into, making the project less feasible.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And, I might need to follow up with an answer after I talked with Alicia Sherburne, the executive director for Big River Community Land Trust. I know their plans were slowed when they did not receive a LIFT grant. And so I don't think that the entire 42 units is moving in lockstep, but so I'm not, short answer is I need to get.
Good. I mean, I'm not saying they set the schedule, but it would be nice to not, we got the active party who wants to do some good for the community. It would be nice to not prevent that by our inaction. So you get back to us, maybe that will help us figure out how quickly we can get the schedule. And if you can talk to Alice, if you can talk to Abigail, you don't talk to yourself. Abigail,
I do that too.
But whether they're concerned about calendar, they may not want to do this in election season, but maybe.
I think it's a great election conversation.
That was my thinking. I don't want to speak for them. It's their call.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you feel as though you have?
We have marching orders. Yes.
Where we want to go. And are there any more questions for either our presenters? No? Okay, thank you
Thank you very
both.
much. Patient, Will.
And now we're going to have a presentation on the potential uses of revenue from the carbon project. And so Doug, will you come give us a presentation on this?
And thank you for being so flexible, being pushed down the agenda.
He didn't look worried about it. He nodded when I suggested it.
I have to admit, originally when we kind of hypothesized how this would come before you, I kind of thought it might need to be a new business anyway, so.
There it is.
Here we
There
are.
it is. Here we are.
So thank you for taking some time in this meeting to talk about this a little bit. It's something we've been working with a long time, really, at least in over the last 5 years. And so a little background there. The County Forest Department has pursued a carbon project related to management of the county forest. And because of that, after quite a few years now, we're finally getting to the point of expecting to receive some revenue here, hopefully in 2026. I mean, it could be really any month now. So I thought I'd kind of review some of the landowner obligations relative to this project. And this relates to why is there additionality in terms of carbon and the carbon market, and what does it take for us to do this from a staffing standpoint to manage it? And then why can we get revenue from this? So here's some of the obligations that the Carbon Development Agreement with the Climate Trust puts on us, these obligations. During the contract term, the initial 10 years, the county must maintain and operate the property, county forest, in material compliance with all applicable law and methodology. We must cooperate with the project developer during the validation process and the verification bodies that review this project. There's correspondence involved in that. And we provide reasonable access to information and documentation to the project developer. This is ongoing things. Now, that's everything that relates to our forest management, specifically things like timber sale removals, harvest, even things like thinning, pre-commercial thinning, that kind of thing. Anything that changes the carbon on the landscape, we track that. All that stuff we've already tracked, but we've still got to package it in a way that they want it, they need it, and we do this at a minimum on an annual basis. That takes ongoing staff time in our forestry department, as well as just ongoing communication with the Climate Trust. We are to manage the property in a manner that will not reduce carbon sequestered by the project over any consecutive 3-year period. Salvage harvest is not included in that. However, that's something that's probably the most serious part of this agreement in a way, in that it really affects our ability to monetize over time or on an annual basis. It affects or restricts our ability to monetize our county forest revenue. It takes away some flexibility. We're constrained with a ceiling, a cap, so to speak, in terms of what we can harvest if we wanted to do something different.
Can I ask, is that because we're not changing the amount that we're cutting, but we used to sometimes flex from year to year, and now there's a cap on every year? Is that partly the reason for that?
No, I would frame that a little differently. I would say by law, we're not required. There's nothing that holds us back from, say, over a 5 to 10 year period, harvesting more than growth specifically. By law, we could do that. However, this project says we can't harvest more than growth in a 3-year period. So just a little different nuance there. Historically and for a long time, we harvest about at growth, and we're looking at a long-term horizon also that is non-declining over time. That's actually pretty significant piece to this. But that's something we do ourselves. By law, I mean, you can probably find other entities, even government agency type entities that may flex that over time.
Yep. Thank you.
Another point, things that we need to do, maintain third-party certifications such as the American Tree Farm System, and that's required by the greenhouse gas plan as part of this project. And what that means is our management plan and what we do needs to be third-party certified, and we currently do that through the American Tree Farm System. There's a couple other certification programs out there, but that's the one we've been doing for almost 25 years. And that's required now with this program. Couldn't just do something else. We still need to maintain that. Again, a little more staff time, a little much more fooling around on our part to make sure that occurs, that third-party certification. We need to maintain records required of the program. And again, more staff time. And then we need to perform the ongoing project monitoring, reporting, and verification during the whole project term, out to 40 years, as required. And again, that just takes a little more staff time. So I just wanted to highlight, those are kind of the high points of what's required. There's a little bit more in there, but there's a number of things as a staff, as a forestry staff, we have to pay attention to. In order to comply with this and comply and uphold this program that we've agreed to. And so the next piece that I wanted to talk about, though, is as a result of all that is the revenue piece. That's what we've been waiting to get to here. And during the course of preparing to do this project, discussing this project with commissioners and staff, we based a lot of this on this project would help fulfill some strategic plan goals of the county. And that includes things like initiation of a carbon conservation ecosystem service, as well as revenue generation, which may be used to acquire substantial forest land resources for the county. And those are two really key things when the board approved this that was considered. Now, when we look at the ORS 275-330, section 2, it's a little bit broader than that. But historically, the commission, the county, as long as I can remember, they've been pretty focused on anything that encumbers the county forest that results in revenue. They've been pretty focused on using that revenue for land acquisition to build that part of the asset so that in the future you would be able to provide more revenue for the county. Kind of the basis for that. It's a long-term play. Again, that said, there's a little more flexibility in that statute.
Could you repeat the citation?
Yeah, ORS 275.330, section 2.
Thank you.
And we also echoed some of this also in the order number 23-002 that the commissioners passed when they committed to that carbon development agreement. Again, those things were articulated in that order by the commission at that time, that we want to accomplish those strategic plan goals of the ecosystem service as well as revenue to acquire forest land. I'm just pointing out there's a little more flexibility in the actual ordinance that allows for using some of those funds for maintenance of the county forest or improvements on that county forest land or the acquisition of lands. I'm just pointing that out. So the question is for the commissioners, as we're getting close to getting revenue and, as a staff, we would be looking to create a resolution, draft a resolution as to how we're going to use those funds. And I guess given the foregoing, some of those ideas, concepts, in terms of how we use the money, how does the commission feel about that, of use of that revenue? Do we want to, there are other ways we want to tweak that or stay on the same course that was previously contemplated?
Wasn't we really specific in stating that the reason why we're doing this is we're looking for, this is a long-term sustainability play for us. We're looking to do things that will, in the long term, improve the county's ability to provide services at the lowest possible tax rate. Is there anything else?
I mean, I have that same sentiment, but I think it would be worthy. I would certainly like to understand what those other alternatives could possibly be, or how much they may cost. I mean, if they're in, anyway. And then secondarily, how much revenue? I mean, we see a 10-year projection up to what, 25 to 28 million. What, I can't remember.
The original projection was, over 23 million. We've later, with the amendment and some of the new methodology and some of the changes in the carbon program, it's lowered. It was a little over 17 million.
Okay, so
and we don't know.
Regardless,
Exactly.
over time, over 10 years, let's say it's 17 million. My question would be, would that substantially, if land were available, would that substantially change and impact our revenue stream over time? I mean,
I think so. 5%,
10%.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any way to quantify that? I mean, I know it's all hypothetical, but
yeah, we're at that point, we're talking about thousands of acres. It certainly currently we have 34,597 acres. Getting to 40,000 acres is within eyesight. If we're talking about that kind of money revenue coming in, potentially more, we're looking at other things that could partner with these funds as well to make them go further and acquire even more land. So you start saying, well, if you could kind of double that money, so to speak, with grants,
gotcha.
that kind of thing, you might be pushing 45 or 50,000 acres. There could be other partnerships that could help us in that regard as well that we've been fostering over the last 10 years, put it that way, as a forestry department. And so that gets kind of exciting, but that's a little ways off. So I think a very realistic goal is trying to get to 40,000 acres, and you know, you start to add 15 or 20% to your acreage. That does affect the bottom line eventually in terms of what you can make for revenue on that.
I think from a policy point of view, are you asking whether, you know, is forestry the way to do this, or should we be considering diversifying or other activities for long-term sustainability? Is that where you're getting at, or?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that this should be used as long-term sustainability for certain, but I don't know what that other stuff. I don't know if there are other options, what those look like, or what we could. I mean, are they guess it's not super clear in my head either.
Well, I mean, either we would. I don't see a pathway by which we would be using these funds for something other than long-term sustainability, but I could imagine a discussion where we say, okay, we've got a lot, you know, my personal feeling is timber is something we understand. We have infrastructure, we have staff.
Sure.
We've been doing very well with it. But you might say that you want to think about, you know, some diversification.
So I guess what I'm saying is the ultimate goal, I would agree, would be long-term investment, sustainability, but I mean, use the word management. Without using some of those funds, would we be able to manage at an increased size of the forest? See what I'm saying?
That we would need to use some of the income from this.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, I think that's a proposal, isn't it, to have
I think there's the recognition that, yeah, at a minimum, to take over the program will require some administration time. And then, yes, if you're looking at growing your footprint from 34,000 acres to 40,000 acres, we're already hard pressed with the staff that we have.
Yeah.
So would staffing be a part of that? But recognizing, I think Doug proposed something limited.
Yeah.
You know, maybe 4 years so that the program would grow and then you would be able to absorb that cost into general operations instead of having it eat up all of the. Yeah.
I'm not super clear. I'm certainly not advocating that the carbon revenue should be covering the expenses of the forestry department to offset from the general fund. I'm not advocating that at all. But I'm just saying, I'm just wondering if a certain amount of that administration cost for something else should be considered, because we would potentially be putting more burden on the department if we acquired considerable lands. That's all I was saying.
Well, there's gonna be more management.
Yeah, I just assumed that.
Yeah.
Generally.
I didn't even have any question on that. I just guessed he was going to at some point explain to us what he needs to do to deal with that.
Okay.
and each of these.
I think
But potentially using some of the carbon credit revenues to cover those expenses.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't see why not.
Okay, then we're in alignment.
And each of those acres can also be put into the carbon project. And we can sell more carbon credits for every acre, correct?
Yeah, additional, it's a programmatic project. So if we, within a certain window of time, any acres that we acquire, we can put directly into this project, add to it, so to speak. I think there's actually there's a few acres we've held out to this point, anticipating some land transactions. Those don't seem to be moving that way at this point. So definitely leaning toward already rolling some into it a little bit. That said, we get more property in the short term. And we're just got about 2 more years left to get that done. They could be added to the project. So it add a small increment more to our ability to get some revenue from that.
was it 10 years ago that the county had, went through an in-depth investigation of other potential enterprises that they could get involved in. And at the end of the day concluded that, they looked at, wind power, they looked at cogeneration. I wasn't here then, but I just remember a list of, I think there were 3 major areas, and none of those showed any significant promise. After they dug in, each commissioner went and took an area and they dug in, and at the end of it, they came up with, continue with timber. So are you at all interested in looking in other areas, or, okay? I'm not either.
No.
I just might as well get that out there.
And how close is close when we talk about the sale of this?
Well, originally we were thinking towards June, at least they're moving that direction, hoping to get it done by the end of this month. I'm not sure, conversations over the last week and a half, but it's close, but there's still a few last things they're trying to work through
And
to
where'd we land on
complete a sale.
Where'd we land on the value of it? We have
So,
parameters.
yeah, it's probably not great to discuss that publicly if we don't have to, at this point.
Okay, let's not do it.
Yeah.
That won't help us moving forward if we discuss that
Okay.
publicly. But yeah, anyway, that's probably on the lower end of the range at this initial round, but hopeful that it would improve. And again, prices have come down from when we signed the project. At that time, prices were kind of at a peak, and they've come off just overall since then. So, but we're going to be selling a lot of these offsets over the next 10 years. And it's reasonable to believe that some of that pricing will come back. You never know, but it's reasonable.
Well, excuse me. Do you have more?
I have, so we actually made a draft, and I don't know, would be all right to share that. A draft resolution that we could, I can give it to you. And I think it's in line pretty much what we've already talked about. There might be a little edit or something, but at least you guys get a chance to read through it.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's even pre-highlighted.
Well, that was kind of mean, but then I decided I should make copies and bring it, so. Yeah, you got a few highlights. Yeah. So, you go through a typical resolution, you've got the whereases, and this pertains to the allocation of revenue derived from the improved forest management carbon project. And, the first couple paragraphs there just give a little background. But I wanted the last two there, we're expected to get some revenue from this, from the sale of carbon offsets, probably in 2026. And, the landowners, Hood County, designated county forest is encumbered by obligations imposed by the Improved Forest Management Project through October 26, 2063. And landowner will need to pay for certain project expenses and potential project expenses during the life of the project. And now, therefore, we be resolved by the commissioners, and this is a draft, so this can easily be changed. Three points in terms of how we allocate revenue. 7.5% of revenues shall be placed in carbon reversal fund, and if at the end of the carbon project said funds are not yet expended, the reversal fund may be used for the acquisition of forest land.
This is something we agreed to already.
We've discussed. This is different than the reversal.
So it's like
part of the project. So there's two types of reversals. There's a voluntary and an involuntary. The project, through the climate program nationally, has a fund whereby a certain percentage of offsets that are sold usually around 18%. It can be lower, like 15%, sometimes 20%. They determine that, how much is going to get reserved. It goes into this reversal fund. And if you have an involuntary reversal, such as say a wildfire, very common, on your project area, that's involuntary. It's not something you did or caused or could completely prevent. Then this reversal fund at the national level acquires other offsets elsewhere to offset the carbon reversal that happened on our project. That's involuntary.
And that's not this.
That's not this. Okay. This is our own doing. This is kind of something that we thought of as we were forming this project. And it's kind of the way I think anyways, because like, well, we still have some risk here. There could be something that just happens year to year through our harvesting. For example, when I cruise a timber sale, it's an estimate. And I'm estimating how long they're cutting the logs, how short they're cutting the logs and we don't restrict that really. We want them to market however they need to. Well, that can result in the sale overrunning or underrunning. And if you had 3 years in a row where they all overran and they cut their logs shorter, which means we get more scale, it could overrun to a point where there's an actual reversal on how much carbon was removed in a 3-year period, in which case we have to pay for that, mitigate that. It's going to cost a little bit to do it. So I felt like in talking through this project, I felt it's good that, we don't just try to find that out of some other reserve funds. I'm going to set it up ourselves out of the cash we get from this in a kind of a carbon reversal fund, so that we protect ourselves in the event that we have an actual, voluntary reversal, something still a little bit out of our control from a planning standpoint, but it could happen.
So you're effectively creating a very dedicated reserve fund. You're saying 7.5% because that felt good, or is there some?
Yeah, that was my question.
Some specific.
I'm sure you have. So I was like,
You had to know that was
I had
coming
my
up,
notes on how we derived that. I'm probably not going to I'm not going to remember it
No,
right now.
we're not gonna understand a lot of the words used anyway, but if you just sort of give us the general gist of, do you feel that this is the appropriate amount because of the risk that you've seen in the past?
I think there's a small amount of risk that this happens. For example, if we harvest 9.5 million a year and we go over by 1 million, maybe 10%, or even probably less, 5 to 10%, we get our toes over the line a little bit and we need to mitigate that. And that's the idea here. I don't think we need to, reserve half of it. That's very unlikely. I just can't even really see why that would happen. But it makes sense to me to withhold a little bit over time, so we have a little bit of a.
It sounds like it's an
But in the-
educated guess based on all of your years of cruising timber
Right.
and having sales, and you have a very good idea in your head of how many percent we go over and under each year.
Right.
And I'm assuming that's what it's based on. That makes sense to me.
Good, and in the end, it still meets our long-term goal, which is to acquire forest land at the end of the project.
Right.
Just as long as we're not tying up too much.
Exactly. And I arrived at 7.5%. Again, looking at, to your point, exactly. I can see we've had periods of a couple years in a row or 2 or 3 years in a row where everything underruns, then you go a few years later and everything overruns and you're just like, and you don't know until 2 years later. Right. So it's already done. And so there's no way to kind of buffer for that. And so this is our own internal buffer that I would recommend that we do something like this. Now, if you feel like 5% is enough, okay. 10% seems a little high to me. 7.5, I feel good about 7.5. That's just kind of where it's at.
Well, it's kind of for you to make the recommendation.
That's kind of where I would land is 7.5%.
Can you remind us of the Timber Forest Land Fund? It already exists. And money goes in there when we sell. Why don't you explain what that fund's all about?
Yeah, so, and I can't tell you exactly how long ago they set that up. It's been there, I think, as long as I've been here, since '93. I think it was in existence then. But basically, any revenues that come from encumbrances of the county forest, or say in a land exchange, to balance the land exchange, money either goes out or comes in to balance that land exchange. And again, that is framed by ORS 275 that requires a land exchange to be of equal value. And there's ways to equalize that, and sometimes it's cash. And so that land fund holds those types of funds that came from a land exchange, or something else that, like a lease or something that encumbers our land. Those revenues go into this land fund because it is a restricted use in terms of what we can do with those monies. And so again, historically, county has used those revenues to acquire forest land. So we call it the forest land fund. And so that would be this.
You referred to flexibility there. You said we were a little more strict than we have to be. What I read is just, we could be using it for recreation purposes, but we've chosen to, that's what you mean by we have a little flexibility.
A little bit of
right?
flexibility. You
It
can
has
use
it's
it
land
for
for land, but it could be land for other public purpose.
as well, correct?
Okay.
Great. I believe that's certain purposes, like a park or forest land type of use.
In the context of the ORS for use of forest.
That's what I'm asking. Yeah, exactly.
Forest land, recreational use is, those words are used in the statute. And again, I always on these you really get into the weeds on this, I always lean on Lisa to be the final one to say, yeah, no, that doesn't work, or yes, that does work.
But you're not talking about using it to, to purchase the county office building or things like that. Those are not within the
I think
scope.
that would
at
be
all.
hard. I think that would be, like say use it for the courthouse. I think that's outside of that scope.
That's my understanding.
You might be able to construe some kind of a capital improvement project on the forest land for within that statute guidelines, but again, that's not something we've done really.
Courthouse.
I would always bounce, use it for like an improvement on the county forest, like to put in a vault toilet or something.
But-
We've never done that with these funds. But before I do, because if it's something new like that, I would always bounce it off of Lisa. To make sure that she agrees that, yeah, that's an appropriate use.
To me, it says for lands. It's for acquisition of lands to be set aside for park or recreational use.
It could
That's
be
the
used.
improvement of existing park or recreational. Never mind.
Yeah, and it could be used for maintenance, so I interpret that as you could cover some staffing costs to as well within that, for management or maintenance of those lands specifically.
But we
of the
don't have to
forest-
follow the ordinance directly. We can make it restrictive to what we want.
We
Is
can make it
that
more
correct?
restrictive.
Yeah.
So we can say it's for the acquisition.
Yes.
We can't do things that it doesn't allow.
Yes.
I just have a cough, I told you.
And so the second thing on there, kind of relative to that, is up to $150,000 per year for the first 4 years of revenue received shall fund one forestry department staff position. Now, in doing it that way, we're consolidating that staff support into 4 years, into the first 4 years. And it happens to be, at least in my mind, kind of the time maybe of the most critical use for that to help cover those costs that we're experiencing now. In the current year's budget, our department's been reduced down a position. So with attrition, and that was planned. But we're having to do, as some departments are, we're having to produce what we do with 5 people in forestry specifically versus 6. And so this utilizing some of these funds, acknowledging that this project by itself is contributing more workload for us during this time. It could help us kind of fill that gap a little bit and get us up to speed for a few years. It's a suggestion, 4 years. Alice and I talked about it a little bit. You could do more, you could do less. That's your discretion, how long and how much.
I don't, this feels to me too much like budgeting outside of a budget cycle. I would prefer us to do something where we simply identify that a certain percentage of funds or a certain amount of funds are available to be put aside for administrative purposes.
Yeah.
And I don't like going into the detail that you did here, as it kind of starts to imply that we're creating a position, we're guaranteeing the position for 4 years, and I don't think we should. I don't think, I'm not sure if we have a right to do that, but even if we do, I don't think we should be doing that.
That makes sense. We can,
But have an administrative fund or something to deal with that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, and again, this is a draft.
Yeah.
Bouncing off the concept as much
What's
as
the
anything.
timeframe?
Excuse me?
What's the timeframe on needing this in place?
This is really for us
Right.
and the staff to manage those funds. Sherry.
I mean,
including
sure, you
Sherry,
create a
right?
new account at any point. It doesn't have to be at a budget cycle, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there can be a budget adjustment once we know what it is.
Once money comes in.
Right.
Sure, we'll take care of it.
It was anticipating money coming in and making sure we
got it.
had the appropriate place. I think understanding that, for now, it can land in the timber forest land fund, but then the fund policy could allow some flexibility. So the reversal fund and
Right.
administrative costs.
Right. I think the reversal fund, it'd be a good idea, and I'm gonna bounce this off Sherry because she had some feedback amongst staff earlier on that. Did you have a different name for that? Or was a reversal fund, would that work for you to create that in a different location for
It was
those?
just call it reserve.
We can't call it a reserve. There's restrictions on certain types of accounts.
Mhm.
And if you want to put an employee in there and it becomes more of an operating fund and so that's why it fits into what he already has, which is Fund 406.
Mhm.
But maybe we want to separate out that 7.5%, just that piece, have a new division for the carbon project and take the 7.5% of all incomes that come and build a reserve account with that.
That's what I was trying to say. I like the idea of keeping this money separate so that we know where it came from, we know where it's going to, and there's no confusion about that.
so does that mean you would not want it to be placed in the timber forest land fund?
No, just what it says here.
The 7%.
I said 7.5% shall be placed.
Okay,
in
the reverse.
reversal fund.
It's only the.
I'm just saying, call it something else because I don't think we know what a reserve is, we don't know what a reversal is. And
You have to read the carbon development agreement for that.
the reason why I'm asking for the timeframe is because I would like us to link this in with the work we already requested staff do in the timber interest fund. I want to know if that's gonna cause any problems. So. Right, because we asked staff at the last meeting or the meeting before to come up with some recommendations for language regarding the uses of the timber interest fund.
Right.
Or timber interest reserve fund, whatever we're
Right,
calling it.
timber fund and interest fund.
So is it reasonable to link them together? I mean, they're not the same thing, but it would be nice to be talking about reserves and fund allocations and stuff at one time when our brains are crunching that sort
To
of
me,
concept.
this seems so specific to the carbon project that I don't see them as being the same discussion because I just don't see them as being the same. I think this is money that is specific to this particular project. And this is a very simple description of what we're gonna do with it. And so I don't really see the connection. I'm not objecting to it, but I think this is separate. I think it's.
I don't think it's in the same resolution. The connection is simply that on a day that we're talking about this sort of thing, it's easy for me to get my brain into the frame of thinking about this other fund and that similar sets of staff members.
But we have to have someplace to put this when it comes in,
I don't think,
don't we?
was that the case?
That's easy enough. It's just like Commissioner Babbitt said, we just create an account. When the money comes in, there X.
And we can
And
correct it
we
later.
can take the 7.5% and create a reserve fund.
This is not, we don't have to take action to create a fund. We have to create policy.
Correct.
And so this is the policy question that
Right.
you're getting to, the specifics of the fund. That's kind of the problem with this, that, you kind of focused a lot on the mechanics, because you've obviously worked with Sherry on this, but I want to make sure that we all agree on the policy, and it sounds like we're pretty close. And that's why I also want to talk about the policy, the other policy question, which is the timber interest reserve fund.
Which would be separate from.
Yes.
this
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
Entirely separate.
Thank you.
Simply the same
Yep.
day we would be
Yep.
talking about it, our brains would be in that frame of reference.
Then, what is our recommendation to staff? Do we want to, bring this back in the future at the same time that we talk about the other fund as well?
I sure think that this is a great start. I would kind of rephrase things to beef up the policy language and to leave the specific, the mechanics to whatever Sherry thinks is appropriate, but
Yep.
that you make sure that we make clear to the future what policy decisions we're making regarding this and why.
You think that, I think hopefully the administration understands.
Yep.
What those changes would be.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
That's
It's,
helpful.
you did great work. This is mostly what we need. Sounds like we need a few tweaks and
That's expected.
yeah, no, it looks good.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay,
Very good.
pardon?
You done?
No, I just, I'm on the carbon.
Oh, I thought you were adjourning.
No.
See,
The next thing is the ambulance service area advisory committee representatives.
Thank you. Doug.
Thank you very much, Doug.
That's me. Hello. All right. Good evening, commissioners. This is the next installment of our conversation about the ambulance service plan. So per the recently approved ordinance, we are directed to establish a new ambulance service area advisory committee. So as part of your packet, you have a proposed roster of the voting members that would serve on the committee that we have confirmation for. And since submitting that roster to your packet, we have confirmation for the emergency physician position as well, Dr. Christopher Van Tilburg. I do want to highlight a few differences between this new committee and the past one that helped us redraft the ambulance service plan. Per the ambulance service plan and the ordinance, we now have positions for both West Side Fire and Y East Fire as voting members of the committee. And we also now have a 911 representative. So that's how the makeup is a little bit different. We removed the EMT position there as well. So we still have 9 voting member positions. The one that remains unfilled is a public member position. So that's the one that we're seeking your approval to move forward with posting for volunteer applications. And ideally, we would start meeting in July, after end of July, early August.
And so you are asking us to confirm this and also direct staff to advertise
Yes,
for the public member.
yes,
Okay, well, this looks like you guys have done a lot of work. I remember when we started this.
yeah.
So well done.
It doesn't feel quick, but I think it is quickly.
But it looks like it was done well.
Well, thank
So-
you. Thank you.
Yeah, but the ex officio members, were there ex officio members in the last go around?
There were, and I connected with all of them and inquired if they would still like to be a part of the committee. And I heard back from most of them, they're still interested. I
And
think
this is productive to have these folks.
very much so. Yeah, I think it creates a richer discussion. I think the 9 voting members, I think we did a great job with the plan, making sure that we have representation across the board, but there's a lot of different entities in our community that touch ambulance service too. So I think it can be really helpful to have some other voices, especially when talking about, moving forward, we'll be overseeing the contents of the ambulance service plan. And so it'll be helpful if concerns come up to have like more varied conversation and expertise.
Any other questions? No? Very well done.
Great.
I think that will be our direction to staff if I don't hear otherwise. That we'll advertise for it.
Okay.
Do we need a
Give
motion?
A motion to confirm.
Oh, that's right. We need to confirm. Okay. Motion to confirm, please.
I would make a motion that we confirm this roster
And would you like to add directing staff to proceed with advertising?
and direct staff to proceed with advertising. That's what I was saying.
All right. All right. Any discussion? Commissioner Moretti?
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitts?
Yes.
Commissioner Munzer?
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, thank you very much,
Commissioner.
Darren.
Thank you.
Well done.
Appreciate that.
And our new business is the local public, local public safety coordinating committee update.
And Chair, you were for this one. This has been operated out of the sheriff's office. So Sheriff English would like a few minutes to talk about this committee, how it operates,
Yes.
and a
please.
proposed plan moving forward.
Thanks. This will be very brief. I will say local public safety coordinating council once, and then we'll use an acronym, LIPSIC. So this is a statutory committee. A lot of the members of this committee are by virtue of position. Our LIPSIC has not historically been very active. But I had spoken to the county administrator before this meeting, and I was actually looking at moving to convene it and elect a new chair because the retired undersheriff was the chair. And then I saw that it was on the agenda, and I said, perfect, I'll just run up here real quick and would be happy to take that bull by the horns to convene, because I saw that was the action if you approve of that. But this committee is going to need to be a lot more active going forward. Criminal Justice Commission grants are going to be aligned under one grant application going forward, and we have a lot of money that comes into the county through various sources. It's everything from our deflection program to our specialty courts, to the impacts, but then the JRI, and then the mediation, restorative justice, and juvenile. Yeah. So what, six or seven funding sources? So right now they're separate applications. They're going to consolidate them into one application that LIPSIC will have to approve, bring forward to this body for final approval. We already have to run a juvenile plan and our community corrections plan through LIPSIC. So historically, we haven't had a lot of participation from some of the agencies, and so I think this is a great opportunity to start getting participation. Commissioner Moretti is the representative on LIPSIC right now, and assuming she will continue in that role, there's going to be a lot of things to discuss going forward. So just wanted to give a little bit of context.
Perfect.
That's it.
So is the problems previously, is this structure capable of recovering and functioning well? Or
It is. I mean, it's statutory. It's statutory, and so I think.
Good answer.
Yeah, I mean, it says who the members are supposed to be, and I think we have all of our members identified except for the public member, which we had for the very first time since in my career as sheriff, had filled, has recently resigned, which is in your packet. So that needs to be advertised for. But I think I think we can do some groundwork outside of these meetings to talk with the stakeholders that haven't historically participated and talk about why it's really important that they participate going forward, because it's going to impact a lot of the criminal justice programs that we rely on in this community.
So basically more of the same, but with a little bit of a nudge, encouragement.
I think so. And I think there just hasn't been an understanding in the past of why it's important. I mean, even if we look next door in Wasco County, they have a very robust LIPSIC and it's well attended and they're very active. And I think we have opportunities here to do that.
There is you.
Monthly meetings.
That might be a little aggressive.
Is that what the bylaw? That's what the bylaw.
Well, I saw that and I had a question about that. Yeah.
These are the ones that have been around for forever.
Yeah.
So they could be updated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, my personal opinion, just, having done this for a while, I think if we had a goal of quarterly meetings and we stuck to that, that I think that would be appropriate. And then as the bylaws state, more meetings could be called if necessary.
Yeah. But it's certainly a forum that feels like we would be getting all of the respective entities together and including our city folks. And when you look back at the history, it was called originally for by our past judge. So just that it's meant to exist for a reason and we should be active given some of these issues we have. Or things to address and coordinate.
So we're being asked to accept the resignations and direct the committee to convene and appoint a new chair. Do we also need to direct you to advertise for the position because for the open, well, the open, yeah, the open I just.
Community
The
member.
community
Yeah.
member, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something we also need to do?
Yeah, we I think we've got an offer from the sheriff to convene the committee. So then the action would be to advertise for the public member and get that person appointed so we can go forward. Once the committee's convened, the first order of business would be selecting a new chairperson.
We have a date for the next meeting. I'll wait for the invite. Please.
Do we need a motion though?
Yes.
Yeah, we need a motion to accept the resignations and direct them to convene, appoint a new chair and advertise.
So moved.
All right.
I'll second.
All right, moved and seconded. Are there any other questions? Deliberations. Commissioner Munzer?
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitts?
Yeah.
Ready? All right. Very good. If there's nothing else, thank you very much, Sheriff. Then we are adjourned.
And we will send out notice for the special year-end meeting. Sounds like we have a quorum available on the 30th. We'll query for times and get that notice out.
This is Tuesday, right?
Either Monday or Tuesday of that week. Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because it was Tuesday, if it's late enough, my feedback, because our session